Hello everybody and welcome to After Effects Part 2. Today we're going to be doing masking and camera and motion tracking, which is super handy, super fun, and relatively easy. Very time consuming, but really fun, I think, if you like time consuming, fiddly, pernickety stuff. So it's a really good thing to put some music on and get going. But it's going to help you add things to your shot, remove things from your shot, and just elevate your films a little bit. Anyway, let's crack on. So today we're covering masking and camera and motion tracking. So basically how to remove and add things to your shots. So let's start with masking. So I'm going to start a new composition from footage, and as we discussed last week, that means by choosing this selection it's going to bring the footage in and create a composition at the same time. So I'm going to bring in the car and the lorries. The cool thing about this is once you have, there we go, so there's the footage. It's thrown up this message, do you want multiple compositions or a single? So for this we'll bring in multiple. There we go, so for each one it's got the clip and then the composition, so we can just double click that and open it. So the cool thing about this is you can practice with whatever footage you can get your hands on. So I do a lot of practice on stuff that I have a lot of friends who are dancers and they just film stuff on their phone and I can mess around with it. I get a lot of stuff off the internet. If you just Google, free stock footage, which is what this is, there's, you don't need a whole crew to practice. You can just find or borrow something from online. So these two shots aren't the most exciting thing you're going to see, but they're just really easy at demonstrating what I want to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is just animate the word lorries from behind the lorries. So if I just play the clip. We could just pretend that this is an opening shot from the Fargo TV show. That makes it slightly more intriguing. So I might, just to start with, make it a little bit bigger so we can just go down into transform and scale it up a bit. Let's do a little bit more. Okay. Happy-ish with that. So for this example, I'm going to add the mask to the word, and we're going to talk about different ways of using masks later, but this is the most basic thing. So I'm going to create a text layer by going up to the T here and call this lorries because I'm not feeling super imaginative. So here's our text colour, and then over here we've got our stroke colour. It just threw that up on my monitor. We've got two monitors. So that's my stroke. This character tool isn't fantastic in After Effects. It's very basic, so I would suggest creating your title in something like Photoshop or Illustrator and bringing it in. The good thing about bringing in things from Illustrator and Photoshop is if you create them correctly as layers, then you will be able to animate them as shape layers in After Effects, which is great. So I might just drop the opacity down. That makes all the difference, doesn't it? Okay, so what I would like is for the truck to sort of reveal the word as it drives past. So what I'm going to do is draw a mask around the word lorries. So I don't know if you remember when I said in the first lesson, if you start drawing on your composition, when you have a layer selected, it's going to draw a mask. If you start drawing with nothing selected, we're going to create a shape. But as you see, if I have something selected and then I draw something on, it's going to create a mask. So it's going to say what we do and don't want to see. So I'm going to draw this here. And at the moment we can see everything. So let's just drop down here. It shows us none. So with none, the mask does nothing. This seems silly, but it's really, really helpful when we start tracking our masks. We can add, so everything in the box is added, or subtract. And then intersect, lighten, darken, difference, which we're not going to touch on, but you can kind of work those out in your own time. So for now, we're going to subtract it. So that as the lorry goes past, we're going to start animating it. So the first thing we need to do is enable the position of the mask, so mask path. So there we go, I've enabled it and we've got our diamond here. So we're just going to go forward. Just another aside, if you hold Command key down and then hit the left and right arrow, you're able to move your playhead along. If you just hit the left and right arrow, you're going to start moving objects instead. So just zoom in. And we'll just start moving our mask a frame at a time. So, couple things quickly. One, my mask is yellow. I can't really see it. It's a little bit too similar to the blue. So if I just go down here and click this, I can make it like bright purple or something. There we go, that's much easier to see. So you can see at the moment, these two bottom squares are filled in and these two are open. That means if I were to pick it up, I'd move those bottom two at the same time. And then you can either move them one at a time by selecting each point, or, and I'll just move on a frame, I can lasso over all of them, and now they're all selected, I can just pick that up as a whole object. And that obviously means that you can lasso, oops, just click on my mask again. I could lasso over, getting all muddled. Yeah, that's the only problem, is once you start deselecting, it can get a bit tricky. So I could jump ahead 3 and see if that works. Seeing as the lorry is moving at a fairly consistent pace. And then obviously we don't need to do it anymore because it's hidden. What I might do is just go to the feather down here of the mask. Just give it a little boost, a little feather, because the lorry is moving, it's not particularly sharp, as you can see. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's kind of fine, right? So I think for me that's just really, really basic masking, and honestly this was the thing that got me into After Effects, because I sent my friend something that I'd done and he said, well, why don't you just reveal the text with that person. The person was doing some parkour jump over the screen, so he just masked it out so that as they jumped over, the logo revealed. And it was just so simple but so effective, and honestly this was the thing that got me into After Effects. I'm not saying my reveal of the word lorries is going to get you into After Effects, I'm just saying, and I don't know what I'm saying, I'll cut this out maybe. Okay, so let's go to car. Hold on to your hats, this is where it really picks up. Great. So what we're going to do is, instead of masking the word, we're going to mask the object. So the first thing I'm going to do is write cars, because my imagination isn't running wild today. In fact, there's only one car. I might just bring this down a bit. Don't want to get carried away. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just hide the word car using this little icon down here. Right, now I'm going to select the car layer, so it's this one here, and I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Command D. And I'm going to call this one, I'm just going to hit enter and call this background, and then I'll leave this as car. So I'll hide car, and now I'm just going to work on the background. Now remember when I said that if you... here's one. So because I double clicked on the layer, it's gone to the layer tab, so we've got this slightly different screen. This is a different monitor really, so we need to make sure that we go back to composition to make sure that we see everything working together. Okay, so first I'm going to make sure I've got the layer selected so that it creates a mask and not a shape layer, and then I'm going to just draw my mask around the car. So I'm going to use the pen tool for this because it's an awkward shape. So if you click just one at a time, you'll get these kind of harsh corners, but if you click and just move the cursor a little bit, you'll get these Bezier handles, which means you can just create a bit of a softer edge, a rounder edge. So I'm just going to drop this down and make sure I've got mask selected, or it's going to keep creating a new mask. So make sure I am moving on from the last one. There we go, I can just make it a bit rounded there. Okay. So I think I mentioned in the last one, you can drop down and go to none, and that just means that you can work with the whole image while you're creating your mask. So what I'm going to do is go to my tracker. The tracker, whatever you've got selected, will look a bit different. So because I have a mask selected, it's just given me a very basic track. So the first thing I'm going to attempt is just to see how well this track picks up. Now first off, I haven't done the wheels because I don't think, in fact I'll just bring back the word car, I don't think it's going to go over the wheels, so we can just leave that out. And I'm just going to see how well this tracks. I might have to do it a frame at a time, but let's just see. So I'm going to press the play forward. The answer is badly, it's done really badly. So I'm just going to select all of these keyframes. They're just position path keyframes, so the mask path, so I can just delete those. So the good thing about this is you can create a track and you can just go in and move them and then try the track again. Oh, it's going off a bit. There we go, you can just grab these stragglers and pull them back in. Get this underbelly up a bit. Oh. So I think what I might have done is overestimated the tracker in this situation and created a few too many points. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I have to go back to where that started. Right, let me get rid of the word car by just hitting this icon here. There we go, that's going to be a problem. So it's an important lesson to learn in After Effects. Sometimes you just have to sack it off and start again. Let me just soften this a bit. So I can lasso some of them. There we go, you can see I just lassoed half of the thing there. I'll just give it a quick save. Move forward about 5. There we go. Oops. I'll just speed this up a bit now, but this is a good way to find out if you like After Effects, because a lot of After Effects is doing stuff like this, which I happen to really enjoy. Just put on a bit of music and mess around with keyframes. What more could you want from a Saturday night? Let's try the tracker again. Oh, there we go. That saved me some time. Okay, and then we'll let it just run out. Okay, so what's happened here is the track has gone a little bit nuts, so we'll just delete that. But if we bring up the word car again, you can see it doesn't matter. Okay, so this is when the car turns around again. So what we can do is just draw another mask. Oops. So I'm going to also do this as none. Let's go back to this. Oh no, I've made a huge mistake. Okay, the only reason I'm not going to delete this is because I do it all the time and it drives me crazy. I have been drawing my mask, but I didn't enable it, so all I've been doing is moving my mask instead of keyframing it, and I think that's just a good way of showing you that even after years of doing this, this is something that happens to me all the time. So the first thing I'm going to do is just delete this beige mask. I don't need that anymore. But what it has done is it's brought the car into the correct shape, so what I'm going to do is get this shape and work backwards from it, actually, because I think it's good to, if your mask moves in and out of shot, it's good to pick a middle bit and then move backwards and then forwards, or forwards and then backwards. Otherwise you're kind of trying to animate your mask coming in and out of shot. So let's see how the tracker works on this. That's pretty decent, actually, apart from it loses the back, which is the bit that I really need to work. So let me just turn that off. I need only the yellow one selected. So I'm just going to go in, I'm probably going to... So the cool thing is, once it loses it, you can just go back to where you think it loses it, pin it back on, and then try again, and it's just going to override the track that exists. Making micro changes, it's pretty decent, I'm happy with that. Oh, no, it completely loses it, damn it. From about there, let's just pull this back a bit. Okay, so now let's go back to the beginning. So now we've got this mask picks it over there and then leaves it, and then this mask picks up from there, so we actually need to work backwards. I forgot about that. Let's see how this works backwards. Yep, I'm actually really happy with that. That's perfect. So let's bring the car. Okay, I've made another mistake. I've added this mask onto the background. So I need to make this moving car, and then the car, I need to make this background. Okay, and then we're just going to put the background there. And then the moving car, we'll go down to the masks and we will add. So we'll create both of these to be add, so that if I remove the background, you can see that anything within the frame is being added to the shot. So let's bring up our background, and if we press play, it should cut the car out. And oh, I need to do one more thing. I need to put the car text in between the moving car and the background. So I'll make a little car sandwich. And there we go. So this is now an object that moves in front of the car, and then when it drives around, it's going to pick up that other mask and cover it again and reveal it from behind. That got a bit messy at the back. What are you going to do? I think also what I might have done is then leave the mask there, so that as the car drove away, the word wasn't there. But we can just go into the moving car and change the mask however we want. So I could just go in and, if I was so inclined, just tidy it up a bit. There we go. So not well, the fact that it's going in super slow-mo as it's previewing makes it look a bit messier than I wanted it to. But I will say that After Effects is a lot of patience. And like I said, I love it. You can put music on and just listen to it as you're fiddling around, which is great. I could pop a little feather on, just soften that as it drives past, which will help my case a bit. So the cool thing is about this is by masking the object and not the word, you can then change whatever the word is and move it around. So if I wanted to change the font, I could, because the car is providing the mask. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one more way of using a mask. I've just changed the font to be a little bit bigger, so when we play, it clearly should be seen through the window. So I'm going to zoom in and start a new mask. Do this around the window. Obviously there's a few windows, I'm just going to do it to this one. So let's just see how the tracking goes. I'll just get the hand tool so I can move it around. And this is when I notice how bad my other mask is. So let's go backwards. Oh crikey, I'm not sure what happened there. Need to pull. There's nothing like zooming in to really see how bad your previous mask was, but this is just a practice. There we go, that's faring a little better. Okay, and then we'll go so I got to there and then we lost it. Okay, we'll go oh. Okay, so we'll go to about there and just move forward. There we go, that's done actually a pretty terrible job. So I'll go back to just doing a few seconds at a time. Seems to cope a bit better, and then we can just pull that out. Get the hand tool again, move the screen across. Make sure I've got that mask, the correct mask selected. There we go, that's gonna have to do for now. Right, so if I change that mask path to subtract, I'll just drop this down to fit. And there we go, now we can see that through the window. So obviously you can repeat that throughout all the different windows if you wanted. And we can just keep moving the word horses around, and because we've masked the car and not the word, we've got much more freedom to change the font, the shape, the position, etc. So that's the benefit of doing it like that. Okay, right, let's move on. So for the next part of the lesson we're doing camera motion and tracking. I've brought in the street, woman texting, and this for sale JPEG. So we'll start with street, and we'll just make a new comp from selection. So we've just got a really slow track of this street. Now the first thing I'll say is it is 18 seconds, so let's find a good bit, and then what I'm going to do is drag this in. So just quickly, we've got our work area, we've got our zoom bar up here, which has got nothing to do with exercise, even though it sounds like it. And then we've got our work area, so I'm just going to bring these in, so we're working with about 5 seconds. So I'm going to right click here and just do trim comp to work area. So now we've just got this short section. Okay, so you'll see that the tracker tool, which we've been using in the previous part of the lesson, now looks completely different. So we've got track camera, track motion, warp stabilizer, and stabilize motion. So these you'll recognise from Premiere Pro. We're not going to touch on those now, but they'll work in a really similar way, so you can go and learn that yourself once we've learnt these two. So tracking the camera is tracking the motion of the camera, and tracking the motion is tracking something that is happening within the shot. Okay, so for this, because we're going to try and stick some words to the road and a sign to the wall, we're going to track the motion of the camera. So we hit track camera and then we wait. The other reason I made the shot shorter is because this takes quite a while. Okay, so now that's finished. That would have taken a few minutes for you. We've got all these track points sitting around the image. So if you move your cursor around, you'll see this little target jumping up all over the shot. And what that's doing is it's showing us the sort of plane that we're looking for. So we're going to stick something on, and this is showing us the angle and the plane that it's going to be sitting. So that looks pretty good if we wanted to put something on this wall here. Just showing you here, you can make the points a bit bigger and the target size bigger if you want. This is just a sort of practicality thing. So the first thing we're going to do is try and put something on the road. So we've actually got no track points that are valid along the road, but what we do have is, I mean, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. So that, you can see, is stuck to the road. So now we've got that, click those three. And one thing I'll just quickly show you is if you're not happy with it, you can hold the command key down and select your own track points, and that's going to put its own, so you can create your own target point. Obviously this one's not really going to work because that's halfway up a wall, but that is possible to do. So I think that one's pretty good. So I'll just select these three. Okay, so I'm going to right click, and the first thing we're going to have to do is create a camera. Now don't panic, we're not going into 3D, the world of After Effects 3D just yet, but it will need to create a camera to complete this, because we are working in 3D now. So we can create text in a camera, solid in a camera, or null in a camera. And I think for now, I'm just going to create text in a camera. So you can see it's created text and it's created our 3D tracker camera. So we've got this cool little kind of diorama of axes now. I would just spend some time getting used to them. So we can change the rotation here within the Z space. We can move it up and down in Z space, and we can change the Y axis and the X axis. I would be careful with this, because the more you move it away from its original position, the more significant the kind of 3D change is going to be. So just be careful with that. But I'm going to bring this in line, and I'm going to just change the text to directed by. Let's just make that a little bit smaller. And then if we move back and press play, that is going to roll along the road with it. Now we can't see it very well, so let's see if we can get it stood up. So let's see if we can get it stood up a bit. There we go. And there we go, it's stuck to the road quite nicely. Alright, now that I've made all of those tracking data points, I'm just going to hide that for now. If I go back onto the street and select the camera tracker, those are all of my points that I developed when I created that camera track. So I'd like to put something on the wall here, so I'm just going to find a point there. Let's have a look. I think that's... I'll try again, see if I can get a better one. There we go, I think that's pretty good. So now I'm going to create a solid, and we don't need to create a camera this time because we created one on our previous action. So if I create a solid, it's just going to stick this blue object now. We've got this track solid 1, and let's have a go. That's stuck to the wall really nicely, actually. So what I might do is just tinker with that. Drop down transform, you'll see that we've got 3 values now. So this is going to be our X, Y and our Z space. So just be very careful when you start moving them around. So that's up and down, that's not going to affect it too much. I want to scale it a little bit smaller. And now I'm going to right click and pre-compose. I'm going to call this sign. So if I double click on the sign, at the moment we've just got this blue square. But if I bring in our for sale sign and pop that on top, and then I can right click and go to transform, and then we can fit to comp. So we can do fit to comp, which is going to scale it in quite an odd way. We can go to fit to comp width or fit to comp height. So none of those really work, but I like that the best to work from. So let's just make that smaller. I'll hold shift down to lock it in. There we go. And then I can hide the blue, and you'll see that it looks like there's black there, but if we go to the toggle transparency grid, we can just see that that's actually transparent, not black. So now this blue box has now been replaced with the for sale sign. So if I go back to our street composition, you can see that that's now been swapped out. and that will stick to the wall. And then it's up to you whether you want to go in and just do some kind of roughing around the edges. You could go to Lumetri. And just desaturate that a bit. Okay. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to do some motion tracking. I brought in this clip, Woman Texting, and we're going to select the tracker again. And this time we're going to do track motion. The first thing I'm going to do, and this is really important to remember, this is one of those things that if you don't do it, you're kind of going to kick yourself and you've got to go back. So we're going to go to New and create a null object. A null object is, I kind of like to think of it like an invisible utility belt. So what we're going to do is we're going to create all this tracking data and we're going to attach it to the null object. And that means that we can attach multiple things to the null object. So this will become a little bit clearer as we go along. So what we're going to do is track the phone, and we'll just add some text messages to it, kind of like, I think they do it in Sherlock Holmes and maybe Hollyoaks. But this will just give us a good example of how to get our heads around tracking. So let's have a look at this tracking window now. Again, it's changed. And we're on the layer now instead of the composition. So our track point is way over here. I'll just make it bigger for now. Okay, so the motion source is Woman Texting. So that is the clip that we're tracking. The current track is tracker 1. We've only got one tracker on it now. It's going to be a transform. That's all we'll use for now. Rotation and scale, it's not going to move. The position is only moving kind of like this, so we don't need to deal with rotation and scale right now. What we do need to worry about is the target, and we need to set this to null 1. We can even name this, let's rename this tracking data, and okay, so the motion source is Woman Texting and the layer is tracking data. That's where we're going to send it. So let's choose the track point. Now, if I were to put it here, it's probably not going to do a great track, because if I move it around and it jumps in, you can see that the surrounding layer, they're all very similar greys. So I'll show you what happens now. And obviously it depends on how big the track point is. If we make these search regions enormous and then try and track, it's going to take, it's going to take ages. So we can make it a little bit smaller. Let's put it back. So I'm going to do a bad track first, just to show you. So I'll make that a bit smaller. That's about right. And then you can see already this tracking point is just gone completely all over the place. So let's just drop this down and delete this tracking data, and we'll start again. So what can we do? We can just move around and see if we can find something a little bit better. But what I'm going to do is actually just put it on her hand, or something that is a bit more of a contrast, because her hand is going to stay in the same position as the phone. So in the past I've used like that bit of her fingernail, but what I found is really good is the ring on her finger. I've got a good place to lock onto there. So now if we move forward and backwards again, so I'll start in the middle and then I can go forwards and backwards. You can see that's locked on much better. And her hand is moving in the same way that the phone is. So that's great. Okay, and then I'll just go back to here and we'll go backwards. So this is sped up. Great. So now we have to apply it. So we make sure that our motion target is selected to that null object and we apply it. If we don't apply it, then nothing's going to happen. We'll apply those dimensions to X and Y. Okay, so I've just imported message PNG, and I'm just going to drop this on. So there we go, it's a PNG, so we've got that transparent background. And I'm just going to grab this and flip it. There we go, and we can resize that easily. Okay, so if I press play, obviously nothing's going to happen because that's just living there. So we're going to do something called pick whipping, which is where we just grab this pick whip icon here and drag it onto the tracking data. We can also, you can see that this has changed, so we can also just drop this down and say the parent is now tracking data. So this message PNG is going to act as the tracking data tells it to, which is crazy because I've only been a parent for 2 years and that is not what children do, what they're told, but that doesn't matter. In terms of After Effects, the parent, which is this null layer, will tell all the other layers attached to it what to do. So now if we press play, it's tracked, it's moving along. And the cool thing about that, instead of adding the tracking data to this message PNG, which would have been the other option, we can now move that message bubble around and it's always going to follow the same path because it's stuck to the null layer. All the transformed positions are on this tracking data, nothing is on here, so we can move that around freely. And that also means that we can add text. Let's get some different characters. I think I've got typewriter on here. Let's just drop that. And I want fill colour. So white text. There we go, no stroke colour. So if we now pick whip that to the tracking data as well, hey presto. Oh, a bit of a review problem. There we go. Hey presto. That's now stuck to it. I'm just going to go to toggle switches and modes and just hit the motion blur, and I think that's just going to soften the movement a little bit. So we can stick as many things as we want to the tracking data that exists to her diamond ring here. And just as a final thing, if we go to effects, just find it, I think it's called typewriter, animating typewriter, we can drop that down. And if you go into the text, there we go, it's going to animate. It just animates the text for you. And I think if we drop this down, you can just see. Here we go. So just quickly, when we look here, there's keyframes, there's circles. That just shows that there is an effect added to that layer. There are keyframes that exist in this area. So if I just drop that down, you can see the circle there. So if we keep dropping that down, you can find, there we go, the diamond, and then we can make that shorter. So here we go, we've got nothing, and we can just bring the diamond so it starts there. There we go. And it's typing a bit slowly, so if we just zoom, and we'll make the end, there we go, there. And let's go to 100% there. So now we've got these 2 keyframes and we can just speed that up a bit. Speed it up even more. Okay, so we can just keep sticking objects to that null layer. So that's motion tracking. I think you would be good to try. I think it'd be a good idea to try motion tracking as much as possible, and then once you've kind of got the hang of it, when you go out to shoot new things, you can take into consideration what you might need to film to get a good motion track. So for example, if you wanted to stick the title of a film to a wall, make sure the wall has something on it that you can easily track. So bricks or something, or like a gate. And if it doesn't, stick something onto it, and then I will show you in the next lesson how to remove that. So you'll often see the green crosses on when people are doing VFX, and that just means that you can track onto that object and then remove it in post-production, which we'll do in the next lesson. Okay, so enjoy. The homework is to just go and practice, go download a load of footage and just practice sticking things onto other things. It's really fun. Okay, and that's it for today's lesson. Thanks.